Welcome, everybody, to IGN's News, Games, and More, where we talk about, you guessed it, news, games, and more. I'm your pal, Jeremy. I'm joined by my friends, Brian, Seth, and a special guest today, Powerbang. I don't know if you guys have seen that channel. It's a great channel. This is a good guy. I'm really happy to have him on. I'm really happy about the show today. We just started doing the show not too long ago, and right when we started doing it, we all got kind of like sent to this like weird work from home environment, and it's actually been great for the show. A lot of people are watching. It's been really fun. It's a good way for all of us to hang out with you and talk about the big stories today, of which there are many. So today, we're going to be talking about Elder Scrolls 6, Diablo 2, Deadpool 3, The Batman, Assassin's Creed Valhalla DLC, just like a ton of stuff. And we're really excited. Also, this is our first sponsored episode, you guys. Are you excited?
Crazy.
We got a new sponsor.
Congratulations. I have my ideas on who it might be.
Yeah, our friends at PUBG Mobile sponsoring the show today. So we'll be talking a little bit about that a little bit later. But first, we're going to talk about how we shouldn't hold our breath for new Elder Scrolls this year or any year in the near future.
That's right, Jeremy. We actually have you mentioned a lot of really great topics at the top of the show, which I think might lead people into thinking that it's good news for all of them. And maybe it is if you're extremely patient, because some of these things will be happening sooner than others. But in a tweet, Pete Hines said in response to a fan, Quentin Myers, who asked, "All right, check it out, Pete Hines. Let's cut the shit. When can we expect some info on Elder Scrolls 6? We need this." And he did the claps in between. And Pete Hines says it's about Starfield, which you pretty much know nothing about. So, it's after Starfield. So if you're coming at me for details now and not years from now, I'm failing to properly manage your expectations, which is sort of like a roller coaster of couth, I would say.
What's going on there?
Yeah. Does he sound a little salty there to you guys?
A little bit. It sounds like he's putting salt on something and then taking a little bit of salt off of something and then putting a little bit back on. Which is okay.
I mean, maybe people wouldn't be so excited if they hadn't teased it for the first time at E3 2018.
Yes.
Isn't it funny? That seems to be the trend with a lot of developers, is that early tease, getting people all ready to go, and then they rebound later with a little bit of salt.
Yeah, it I think the thing with something like that is that in the moment, you're incredibly excited for it, and you get all these pre-orders, and people are really happy, and then the years go by, and that excitement turns to anger, and then greed, and then just pure fury. And I, as like a Metroid Prime fan, I get it, man. Like, I mean, I got a logo reveal a couple years ago, and then essentially the game got rebooted, and they rebuilt the whole team. And so it seems like Elder Scrolls 6 is a long way off, because if you remember Starfield, the only thing we've really seen from it so far was like in Metroid Prime fashion, an animated logo and some sort of like space concept art that could have been rendered in-house, but also could just be stock footage they found on Google. No real way of knowing for sure. And so
it's the moon landing.
It's the moon landing. And so this game is obviously, if you're an Elder Scrolls fan, I would say this is a good time to revisit the classics. Go back and play some of the older ones.
Sounds like you got some time.
Yeah, you got some time, because it's going to be years from now. I think Powerbang, I think you kind of nailed it. Like, there's something that I do sort of hope goes away in that cycle, is that and Bethesda's been good about this before, actually. I remember, was it Fallout 4 where they basically just said, surprise, it's out in like 3 months.
Absolutely. You saw it recently with Apex Legends coming, surprise, day of dropped, and it was a fantastic, successful launch. And I think at the end of the day, gamers, right? We are not developers, right? We want what we want, and we want it now. So when you wet my whistle and say, hey, this is coming, look at how cool it is. Like, if I don't see that in some sort of near future time frame, you start to get a little cranky, So I think, bridging that gap between developer and gamer is definitely something that most can improve on.
It works sometimes, though. I feel like they started talking about Cyberpunk like in 2012 or something. Like, it's been forever, right? That's been coming, and like the hype,
and that's coming in 2077. Am I right?
Where things are going.
Potentially,
that's a real early drop on that one.
I think the difference there was that they kind of kept the drip feed going a little bit better, and at the same time, CD Projekt Red was concurrently putting out Witcher content left and right for free, basically, just massive updates. And so you had this sort of like good guy thing going on, whereas Bethesda, they're kind of hot off of Fallout 76, which most recently added NPCs that will rob you. So
Fun.
yeah, I mean, so I think people have kind of turned on them a little bit. But yeah, it's like the thing is with video games is it's such a quickly evolving, rapidly changing medium that, you know, for something to be years and years away, you start to worry like, is it in development hell? Is it just getting started? Like by the time this thing comes out, is it going to feel antiquated and old? You look at something like Duke Nukem Forever, obviously the sort of like the quintessential epitome of what happens when a game stays in the oven too long, and maybe should have never been in there to begin with. But by the time that thing came out, it was such a disaster. It's become sort of this running joke for the industry to be compared to that game, and so I hope that's not what happens here.
Same. I think it's definitely a challenge too. I guess I get advanced access to a lot of titles in my line of work, right? And I consult for a couple of developers, and I can't mention the titles, but it's like I'll be playing a game like an alpha or even before that, and it's like, okay, cool, this is awesome. When's it coming out? And they're like, oh, we're slated for spring of 2023, and I'm like, the internet moves kind of quick, games in general move kind of quick. And it's got to be so challenging to develop in a forward thinking mindset that like, what's going to be cool then, or what's going to be cutting edge then? Because it's, may not be the same as it is today.
Right. And I think the cool thing about that, at least specifically what you're doing, is that if you do see something that's like awry, you can catch it super early on and then change it. But we say there's a lot about this sort of like weird difference between movies and games, and we cover all those things, on this show and on IGN in general. Movies get press releases, and they get a title and a release date very early on, with a full like basically rundown of who's going to be in the movie, who's directing it. Video games get surprise announced at trade shows back when we used to have those, and Nintendo Directs and PlayStation Minutes or whatever they're calling those things, IGN, all that fun stuff, Summer of Gaming. And so it's tougher to keep track of because everything is so secretive. And so you have this like weird mix of either something gets overexposed because we hear about it for 10 years straight, or we don't know anything about it, but we're all supposed to be excited for it and pre-order it. And so it's a tough line to walk.
Do we know anything about Starfield? Like, it's hard to understand what their strategy is there, especially after we all just played Outer Worlds, which kind of played like exactly what you would expect them to do in space. And then No Man's Sky came and like basically fixed a lot of the things that we didn't like about No Man's Sky. And now that game's doing really great. Like, what angle is there left for Starfield to even take? Do you think that they know? Do you think that they like responded to what was happening with those other titles and like changed it in some way?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, I think it's like we don't know enough about it, but we do know enough about the pedigree behind it in terms of the studio and their history. So we can sort of, like what you just did, Jeremy, just kind of guess what it could be. And those games you brought up are really good examples of games that basically showed what something like this could be shaped like. No Man's Sky specifically is I think such a wonderful redemption story that I think Fallout 76 is something that is attempting that same sort of arc right now, but obviously to different results. I think people sort of gave up on that one a while ago, but then it's also still got its dedicated fans. I don't know. Like, what do you guys think? What do you want this game to be? Like a first-person shooter, a World War II strategy game?
No, I just want Skyrim in outer space. That's all I want. Same music, same enemies, but they're floating.
But we just sort of
the whole franchise itself has been so
thing.
awesome over the years. It'd be cool to see more of the same, but just try to innovate. Keep doing things a little bit different. Across the board. I want to say the industry, I don't want to say it's gotten stale, right? But I think over the last several years, we've seen a lot of tried and true, like this is how you develop games and get mass appeal, mass success. And I would love to see some more outside the box type of development going on. Try to carve out some new niches and genres,
Yeah, I love that. So the weird thing about this year, aside from literally everything, is Bethesda won't be holding sort of a press conference, and not even a digital replacement for E3 this year. I have a feeling a bunch of publishers were sort of like, you know what? Let's not pedal to the metal until the first week of June, and let's sort of take our time. Because every single year, this was the time where people would basically be finishing off their playable demos and trailers and basically jamming on everything to make sure they have something together. And for the last few years, Bethesda specifically has had their own conference on Sunday nights. and they're not doing that this year. They're not even pretending to do that this year. They're not even doing a digital version. So we're not even going to hear about this game for a while, unless they surprise us with something. They do plan on delivering news on Deathloop and Ghostwire Tokyo in some form in 2020. I don't know a ton about those games, but I would say that they're probably less on the priority scale for the average gamer than, Skyrim in space and their Elder Scrolls. So I don't know.
It might not necessarily be like a Skyrim in space thing. Like just to refresh my memory, I just pulled up like the list of games they've published just to throw some stuff out there, because I see like some of the comments are talking about, the recent track record for Fallout and the fact that they just keep putting out Skyrim on like different things like toasters and TVs and stuff. But this is the studio also that did Prey, which was kind of like a cult hit. Not everybody played it, but a lot of those who did really liked it. Same with Evil Within, Wolfenstein, Doom, the Dishonored series, which I loved.
Mm-hmm.
They tried, and like to some varying degree of success, to like kind of shake things up with games like Brink or Wet. Do you remember those?
I try not to, but yeah.
Like that, there is the potential for them to like go outside of expectations and just do like Fallout in space and have something completely different. So I remain interested to see what they have to say, but it is kind of crazy that they're even talking about it. If they don't have anything to share, like, why are we talking about it? It's not like there's one example where this is where I think the hype justifies it, and that would be like Elden Ring. A lot of people in the comments here are talking about Elden Ring. Mm-hmm. Elden Ring is a game that we know nothing about, but people are writing fan fiction on Reddit about it.
Yeah, which is amazing. There's an entire subreddit dedicated to Elden Ring where people are writing about boss fights and strategies and encounters for a game that isn't playable, isn't out. Like they're creating entire fantasy scenarios where they're like, I just fought the monster of the double sword blade on the hill of Dragon Ball, and he killed me. Anyone have any tips? And people are like, yeah, I know what to do. You got to go get this skull in this mountain. None of it's real. Like,
oh wow,
it's amazing.
they're like LARPing
I love this
a wiki page for a game that's not out.
Yeah, so
man.
I mean, I guess I implore you out there to do that for Starfield and especially Elder Scrolls 6, because it's gonna be a lot to wait for there. I think with Elden Ring, it was like the gift and the curse of getting George R.R. Martin involved with something means maybe it's going to come out. It'll never come out. Yeah, it's going to take its sweet time getting there.
It's still being written.
Yeah, I have yeah, I have faith in FromSoft. I love their games, especially Bloodborne, and so we'll see. Fingers crossed. But yeah, we did get some comments here. Scary Christo says, "Why did they announce these 2 E3s ago and then show nothing last year? It still baffles me." So what we were talking about before. It seemed to be Sony's strategy for a while this generation, and eventually we got there was that one E3 where there were like 7 huge games announced. And it seemed like we didn't hear about any of them for a while. And in the last, few years, we've gotten God of War, Final Fantasy VII, even The Last Guardian actually released. A lot of people forget that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's a game that came out. I finished it. So I don't know. It's weird. I think it's sort of like what we were saying before. Like you get easy money and easy wins, but putting up a logo, teasing people. But eventually you got to pay up and you gotta make the game. So it gets difficult.
Right. Don't be surprised when people want to know about the game that you teased 2 years ago.
Totally. I don't blame them. X-Bony Sony Pony, that's his name, right?
Great name. Love it.
He says, I'm actually more interested in this new Starfield IP than a new Elder Scrolls or Fallout, so I'm happy that it's coming first. I think I played enough of my fair share of those other 2 open world games or series. I think X-Bony Sony Pony is correct here.
And that's no baloney.
That's no baloney. Yeah, like the thing is, Jeremy, you want that. I think you're saying like you want this game to maybe deviate, but I do think that people want it to feel sort of quintessential Bethesda. Maybe not with the legs getting stuck in the.
You guys,
gotta have that jank.
Something. I gotta bring this up. Somebody on Mixer brought it up. Wolfgarvin14. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but he just reminded me that Todd Howard has been consulting with Elon Musk about Starfield. And the reason is they want the space travel to feel realistic. I do remember them talking about this and reading about this. They wanted the space travel to feel like flight in the 1940s or something, I think he said. Oh. So You know, like how it's like technically possible, but really dangerous and probably stupid to do. It's supposed to be like that.
Interesting.
Really interesting.
So I don't, you know, take what you will from the fact that he's talking to Elon Musk about that, but
that could go in a number of different directions there.
Yeah, right. I feel like if you make a realistic shooter, you'll have people in the military being like, they totally nailed that gun. I felt that. But if you don't get space travel correct, most of us won't notice.
Yeah,
like
right.
Show of hands, how many of you have been to space?
Right? I mean, how many people have been in the military versus how many have walked on the moon, right? It's a
exactly.
pretty drastic difference of numbers there.
I wish we got those numbers closer together, by the way. You know,
Ryan, you must have been to space to do some weird Let's Play or something, right? Have they not done that to you yet?
Maybe on green screen or VR or something like that.
VR just took a real wrong turn, ended up on the moon.
Let's go play games with alligators and stuff and try to kill them constantly.
That's true. Yeah, we've had a break in travel this year, which means I have to figure out ways to injure myself at home instead. Let's see. We also got news today that Assassin's Creed's first DLC will be revealed months before the release of the actual game. The German Ubisoft store has given us an insight to the content coming in Assassin's Creed Valhalla Season Pass, which looks to include a story mission based on the legend of Beowulf. Which I wonder if that like they've dabbled in sort of like alt history stuff in the past. So we'll see what happens with that. The news was first spotted by Game Notify on Twitter, which included a link to Assassin's Creed Valhalla store page on the German Ubisoft store site. Sure enough, in the overview section, you can read the following line, which includes a story mission, Legend of Beowulf, discover the cruel truth behind the legend. Beowulf is an Old English epic poem which follows the eponymous Beowulf, a heroic warrior who saves the king of the Danes from a vicious monster called Grendel. That's a great name. That sounds like the area between your balls and your butt.
I want to have another kid just to name it Grendel after that comment right there, Jeremy.
These are my sons, Grendel and Taint. The tale is set in Scandinavia, so it makes a lot of sense for Assassin's Creed Valhalla to draw on the legend to flesh out its world. I think it's actually nice when companies reveal the contents of a season pass before they sell it to you.
Do you? I have mixed feelings about it.
Really? Like, I feel like that's the best business possible, because otherwise I don't know what I'm buying into.
It's very transparent and it's very like upfront. You know, you're being very ethical about the purchase, but there is something to be said for like that surprise factor of like opening something a little bit unknown, right? And I'm split both ways. I see both of your points, and I'm not sure which way I lean. Honestly, I like the surprise factor. Probably because I spend way too much on games in general. But yeah, I think I would probably err on the side of the surprise.
Yeah, I like to know what the actual game is first. You know, I don't even really know what that is. Like, how am I supposed to get excited about DLC now? It's going to ruin the surprise for later. I like how like Borderlands does it, where they just keep dropping DLC that just came out of nowhere, and they give you like no indication of what it's going to be. Or Far Cry does a really good job of this sometimes. Like, remember when they did Blood Dragon? And you're like, where did that come from? It's amazing.
That's like some of the best DLC ever. I will say, in both of your credit, the leading argument around not revealing a game's DLC before the game is out is that most people justifiably say, why isn't that just included in the main game? Because it seems like they're being nickel and dimed on something that is already finished, whereas season passes seem like you're buying in additional content. And so the argument is always like, why are you telling me about that now and making me pay extra for it when that should just be included in the base cost? But the reality is they didn't even know that was a thing until they told you anyway. So you have this chicken and egg scenario.
It's weird. We get into this all the time on mobile. You know, being that the freemium model is much more prevalent, right? Just get something for free, pay as you go. And so I see both sides of the coin where, you know, the traditional console and PC guys, you know, freak out anytime, you know, there's some mobile mention. Really prefer is, you know, kind of a mixture of both, right? I don't mind paying a little bit up front, but I also want to make sure that you're funding and incentivizing a development team to keep putting forth effort into a great game or a great title. I want like consistent development over years to keep it around versus the initial like drop a game, cash grab. Okay, cool. We made our money, peace, you know, on to the next project.
Right. Now, that's a really good philosophy. I actually really appreciate you saying that, because I think a lot of people don't really see it that way in terms of like you're supporting a developer in the long tail of their content plan. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you are getting nickel and dimed out of stuff that you could have been getting included at the beginning. Although, of course, that does happen here and there, right? I mean, I'm not going to say that that's never happened before, but it's definitely like, I think if enough people buy into a season pass, they know that they're, ensuring that there's going to be a quality development cycle on this game for months, if not years and years and years to come, which is cool to see, especially for a game, that's going to be this big.
Also, Jonathan pointed out in our run of show that it's worth noting that it's kind of common for Assassin's Creed and Ubisoft to do this, but they also do a really cool thing where they make some of that early DLC, like at least one or two missions, like free later on for people that are kind of like new to it. Do you remember when they did that with Odyssey?
Yep.
Yeah. So it's and also a lot of people in the comments have pointed out that while the cost of game development has gone up and up and up and up and up and up and up, the prices have stayed pretty flat and like haven't like kind of changed along with inflation that we've seen everywhere else. And so for us to continue to have games, like they got to keep looking at different models, and it's, I don't know, it could go either way. Like sometimes it feels egregious, sometimes it doesn't. I'm more in the camp where I just like the surprise of it. It doesn't really bother me, and these games are so big that like sometimes I just don't even have it in me to keep playing the DLC. But they have said that Valhalla is going to be like a shorter, like tighter experience, so that might make it a little bit more enticing.
That's right.
I saw an interesting comment there on YouTube, actually, essentially speaking to like trying to understand the quality of the game before you're talking DLC. And it's essentially, it's like asking for a second date when you're 10 minutes into the first one. You don't really know what the experience is like. It's a great comment. So
that's so true. I think that's a really good point. It's we are hypothetically months away from the dawn of a new console generation, and from everything we've seen, unless there's some last minute pivot, games will once again be $60. And so that while the rising costs of game development have considerably spiked over the years, especially as things go into more and more 4K HD assets everywhere, that price hasn't necessarily been passed on to the consumer, although it has been offset with, DLC, season passes and stuff like that, cosmetic stuff. But a lot of companies are giving stuff away for free. Ubisoft specifically has been pretty awesome, especially since quarantine went down, in terms of just giving out free games and handing out these massive experiences through their store. So I dig them for that. I'm excited for this game. But yeah, let's talk about the sort of like the size of Assassin's Creed Valhalla, because apparently in a, I believe now deleted tweet, they mentioned that it will be a shorter, tighter game than Odyssey, which I don't know if you guys played that game, but I'm completely okay with. I think that there's a tipping point in terms of like overwhelming size. I think Red Dead got into the too big territory. I think that there's other open world games like Watch Dogs 2, I think felt like just right to me. Like GTA 5 is gigantic, but it also I never felt too overwhelmed by it.
Yeah,
so what do you guys think about this?
As a completionist, like I want to play the whole game, but if you're gonna ask me to play for like 200 hours and a lot of it is repetitive and where I like can't even remember what's it like. Odyssey, I loved Odyssey, but there were times where I would show up somewhere that I don't remember ever having been, and they're like, thank you for delivering this letter. Now I can make sure that the Hierophant, gets the message and takes out the whatever. And I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I don't know who any of these people are. I don't know who you are. I don't remember any of this. I'm like totally lost, because it's been 30 hours since the last time that I took on this quest, and then I like got lost doing some other thing. So, I love having a lot to do. I love big open worlds. Like The Witcher 3 is like one of my favorite games. Like I play all the Fallout games, Skyrim games, whatever, but there is a point where it's like too much, and you sort of wonder like if they focused a little bit more on these side quests, would they feel more like Witcher 3 side quests and less like just like go fetch this thing?
Yeah. Open world's one of my favorite genres, but I could not tell you the last. Oh wait, no, Breath of the Wild is probably the only open world game that I've ever beaten. Skyrim,
that you
never
finished?
beaten it. Yeah. Elder Scrolls 4, never beat it. Red Dead 2, never beat it. I have hundreds of hours into all of those games, and it's because I get distracted. I go over there and I see a bird way off in the distance. What kind of bird is that? And then, can I shoot that bird? And I go follow the bird, and I don't do the missions. And
God help you if they give you a camera in the game, and then you're really
forget it. Yeah, then I'm trying to line up the shot compositionally perfect.
No, there's that episode of The Simpsons where like Homer gets that gigantic sandwich and then he's like just eating it and eating it for months. It's like months and months. Yeah, and it's like green by the end. He's standing over the trash can, and like our friend Max Scoville at IGN put up a tweet once, putting pictures of that up, and it just said "open world games." So I think that's a lot of it. It's not really about finishing these games. Sometimes it's more about just like you can't really beat a sandbox. Like you go in, you play until you're bored, and then you leave. And for video games, sandboxes have endings, but sometimes they're hundreds of hours away. I remember when I got to, I believe it was New Orleans, and in Red Dead. And I pulled up to the city, and I just looked around, and I was like, "Are you kidding me? Like, you guys built like a fully functional, like I didn't even know you had this here." I just put the controller down, and I just sat back and I sighed, and I got really sad because I'm like, I'll never experience all of this. I'm like, I'm a husband, I'm a father, like I'm tired. Like it's like if this was the only game I had to play this year, this would be the greatest day of my life. But I love to play a bunch of different stuff, so I just got so overwhelmed that I was like, no, I can't do it. I can't do it.
Like the games that kind of ride the line in the middle there, where you've got your objectives, your quests, your missions, whatever you're doing, that you can follow along and kind of accelerate your progress. But then there's all the tangents and the different stories that you can go off and do on the side. Love to just go get lost when something does appeal to you. You can go, kill monsters or whatever until you're bored, and then and just like you log off, or you go back and you get back on the train of doing the missions. So it's definitely something I enjoy in games.
No, I dig that a lot. It's for me, like I've 100%ed open world games before, especially like Far Cry games, because they're just like supremely dumb and fun as hell.
Those are always a little bit tighter games. Like I never really played a Far Cry. I mean, there's a lot of like little points that you have to go to, and like that sort of stuff that people complain about sometimes. I don't really mind it in Far Cry because it doesn't ask too much of you.
Yeah. I mean, you can tell my breaking point in open world games, especially when I try to 100% them, is always when I get down to like it's like time trial missions for whatever vehicles in the game. And I was like, my dumbass always saves like all 35 of those until like the last. So my percentage is at like 98%, and then I'd have to spend a whole week doing time trials, and I end up hating the game by the end. Sure. It's like leaving the worst part of your dinner like in the corner, and then just getting to the end and be like,
It's all I have to eat instead of mixing it in, periodically. It's a great analogy.
I'm eating steamed spinach now.
Generally speaking, I love open world in general. I'd love to see more of that just across the board. More open world, but man, it has been around. I mean, I don't know. I'm harping on the same point of like trying to innovate because I do love innovation, but at the same time, I do love running around open worlds. I think to your point of like, mounts and writing things, like there's like that fine line of how long do I have to play this game before I can go see, X, Y, or Z often far lands that I have to run to. Like, give me something a little bit sooner that I can expedite my travel. And that's always something that irritates me to no end is when, you have to play just for weeks to get around more efficiently.
I'm totally with you on that. That was like probably my two biggest sticking points with Horizon Zero Dawn, which basically took you didn't unlock fast travel until like you were a pretty good chunk into the game, and even that they sort of like buried the lead a little bit and didn't really tell you like here's how it is. And then Red Dead,
you should try Dragon's Dogma if that bothers you.
Oh god, yeah. I mean, and then Red Dead specifically, which was like that game, like fast travel in that game was like it had all these weird rules. Yeah, it's just not really there. And then there's games like Spider-Man where you fast travel and you're on the train and you're like, this is actually less fun than just swinging around the city.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, we got a comment from a guy named Asperger. That's great. It's spelled like the body part. And like then the food.
You're missing a P there, mister.
Great names on here.
Says, I don't have a problem with DLCs in the slightest. In my opinion, the right thing to do is announce it well after the game has been released and people have had the chance to play the game and know what they want in a DLC. To have it announced before the game is even out begs the question, why couldn't they include this content in the original game? So kind of what we were saying earlier. Right. Also, I find it hilarious that there are already pre-orders for this game and there's not a shred of gameplay footage. That's the bigger issue.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Well, as the guy whose job it is to show people pre-orders, I will tell you the reason why, and it's because people will pre-order the game if they just announce the title and say you can pre-order it now.
Right.
There it is.
Based on the strength of the IP, or is it just
hey, people get excited when as soon as Final Fantasy VII Remake went up, it went up for pre-order like 2.5 years before it released. And I have to imagine there were a lot of people who were like, I'm going to pre-order that. And then Amazon's like, you pre-ordered this on October 7th, 2 years ago.
But Powerbang, I think you're onto something there because you just mentioned like, is that out on the strength of the IP? I think that like Assassin's Creed can pull that off. I think Zelda, Mario, Final Fantasy, big ones like that. I don't know if you could do that with a brand new IP. I mean, maybe you could if you look at something like No Man's Sky, which we talked about earlier. But I feel like I don't remember the exact.
If it's a game that's being kickstarted, but otherwise we're just talking about sequels here. I mean, we all played Odyssey and it was rad, and
I will give you an example.
God of War and it was rad. So you're basically combining a little bit of those two things here.
Biomutant,
has
been available for pre-order, and it is a very popular title in like on Amazon's pre-order lists whenever it comes into the news again. And we don't know, that game's been like forever now.
We are heading into our third year in a row of knowing about that game, and we still don't have a significant release date. We haven't really even seen it for a while. We know it's hypothetically still in development. I've like interviewed the developers of that game on multiple live shows in multiple continents over the last few years, and I couldn't tell you anything about when it's coming, when I'll play it, what platform it runs best on, if it's a next gen launch game. Like apparently it was coming to Switch at some point. Yeah. So yeah, it's a Biomutant is a 3D action platformer where you can turn into animals.
Gritty raccoon. It's Animal Crossing with guns.
I mean, when you put it that way, I get it.
I think now you're promising more than they can deliver there.
We got to start all over again.
TrueLink O&O says, after getting 100% on Origins, I didn't feel the need to get the DLC. For Odyssey, I got a bundle that included the DLC, but after 100% of the game, I didn't even want to play the DLC. So that happens too. I mean, there's fatigue. Video game fatigue is real. Open world fatigue is real. Standing over the sandwich in the garbage can, eating the whole thing until it's blue, that's real. Like, this happens. So I don't know. Have you guys ever played a game where you were like super into it, but you just got burned out on it and didn't finish it?
I felt the same way about Odyssey.
Me too.
I played it so long I was starting to feel like kind of embarrassed that I had like all these other games I wasn't playing. I'm just like, I love this game, but I gotta stop. I got other things I gotta try. I have stuff I have to play for work. I have stuff I have to play, for a number of reasons, and man, I just couldn't do it. I couldn't keep going. I couldn't keep committing time to it.
I think one of the last games that I played that was like that for me, where I put some time into it and then just didn't finish. I think it was a long time ago. Metal Gear Solid 4.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if there was a disconnect with me personally, because like generally speaking, it was a pretty well received series, like through and through. Metal Gear Solid 2 was one of my favorite games ever, as far as like the storyline, the making it super cinematic, but still like you're part of the movie. But then when I got to like the fourth one, I got into it, and I don't know if it was like too much like a movie, and not. I was just sitting there, and I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna go do something else, and I just got up and left for a while. Yeah, the cutscenes got to be a little intense. It was more, hey, we're gonna do a 5-minute cutscene every 2 minutes versus 30-second cutscenes every 5 minutes or whatever. So
yeah, I mean that game
just out of my memory.
That game has like live, not even just cutscenes. It also has like live action fake commercials and stuff like it is a collage of extremely tedious mixed medium that I think occasionally gels well and occasionally doesn't. And then you look at something like Metal Gear Solid 5, which is a game I personally like kind of burned out on, but I played that game for like 60 hours and loved it, and then hit a wall. Yeah, it was so much fun. Yeah, and I got up to like one scene where I had to fight like 7 of those like ninja ghouls or whatever. They're just popping.
Oh yeah. That level's terrible.
And they killed me like 6 times in a row, and then I died. And then everybody was like, "Oh, the game kind of falls apart after that anyway." And Kojima didn't really finish it, so just pretend you beat it and give it a 9 out of 10 in your brain and not on the website, and then walk away. And so yeah, it worked. But let's see. We mentioned this earlier, but this week's episode is presented by PUBG Mobile. Last week, PUBG Mobile just dropped a ton of updates, and with Season 13 arriving on May 13th, see how that works, we've got PUBG Mobile expert Powerbang with us to dish out some of the raddest and most impressive updates in the game. Powerbang, this is your language. You track all of this intrinsically. Tell us what's going on.
I intrinsically track all of it. Big shouts to PUBG for coming through with the sponsorship. That's super cool, being the first ever on the show. But essentially, For those of you guys that are into PUBG on the PC, obviously there's a mobile edition of the game, and I've been playing it since day one when it came out. I believe it was March 20th or 21st of 2018.
Yep.
So we're over 2 years into this game now, and I gotta say it's pretty incredible. Somebody that comes from a PC and console background, I was skeptical about mobile at first. Here we are. Now I'm hooked. This mobile games are my life, unfortunately. So a lot of fun. Miramar just got a brand new update that is their desert map, launched on the 7th, and essentially there's a whole lot of new stuff as part of the map. New structures, houses, even whole cities. They've got oasis up in the north. They've got ruins up in the northwest. If you're familiar with the map, they've added a brand new racetrack, which is something that my friends and I are looking forward to kind of grabbing some of those new powerful vehicles like the Golden Murado, which is the fastest car on the map, but
We
there's
just saw
only
that
one.
on the clip there.
Yeah, we got a Golden Murado, and it's available at Hacienda del Patron, and it's a very, very cool vehicle that's heavily coveted. A lot of people gunning for you when you drive one of those bad boys. Lots of new weapons as well. We've got the Winchester 94 with a scope on it now instead of before it was just iron sights. Music to my ears, as I'm personally a sniper through and through. I love that bolt action in any game, but PUBG Mobile in specific. So we got the Winchester 94. There's a new
I'm
canted
like
sight.
the same way in shooters. Like,
Oh, are you
Yeah,
a
I wouldn't
guy
say-
that are you like a sniper role, right? Like
I'm not like a camper. Like I don't just like sit there and camp, but like
Everyone
I like to be
says
like
that. Every camper says that.
yeah. I like to do long distance.
he says
shooting.
it from the corner.
Little,
in the shadow.
little
I don't
speed.
camp. I just play strategically.
I never camp, you guys. I would never ever do that.
100%, man. They got new canted sights, which is we saw that on PC a while back, but that's finally made its way to mobile. Shotgun's been remodeled for more consistent damage. This is one thing that I'm happy to see is the spread on the shotguns. I'm getting real into the weeds here, but man, it's annoying when you shoot somebody from point blank and they don't die with a shotgun.
Yes.
Like,
For real. Yeah.
You know?
Every game has this problem.
For sure. So hopefully those are a little bit better moving forward. The new flare gun improvements allow you to see like what you're gonna get when you shoot up a flare. I was a proponent of just looking at where you're at in the zone to see if you're inside or out of it. But hey, now it's even easier. We got an indicator that tells you if you're gonna get the new BRDM or if you're gonna get an actual supply crate, which is cool. It's also the cheer park, which is kind of an interactive social area. You can have like up to 20 people in there at any given time. Lots of like you can duel people. You can do like a 1v1. You can do some challenges, target practice, etc. Get some time on the range with those new weapons as well. So that's kind of the PUBG Mobile update. There is a new P90 in the arena as well. Excited to use that. I'm gonna hop on and grab that new submachine gun, hoping that they can move that over to the main game as well, because that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, that rules.
A couple guys in chat are asking questions about this. Like, do you Fortre's asking if you play with a controller, if you prefer that. And someone else was asking, I think it was Jason Christoph, do you need like a gaming phone for this with the update, or do you just like, can you do this on anything?
So for the most part, I mean, as with any gaming medium, right? Whether it's PC, console, well, not so much console, but PC, right? Like you want the most powerful thing that you can get your hands on, right? And whether that's the latest and greatest flagship, that's all good. You can get by on some of the older generation devices. But what I would recommend for those is that you dial down your settings, right? You're not trying to pump the optimum graphics and whatnot. But the main thing that you want to do is get that frame rate as high as possible, as it is on PC, right? As long as it's smooth, you're good to go. And then to answer the question on controllers or how you're controlling things, there are some devices out there that allow you to, have a controller apparatus. But honestly, and this is surprising to a lot of people coming from the console platform, it's more accurate on the phone to use your hands. Like, and it's a really kind of a wild thing that takes a lot of practice. I remember back in, I guess, LA, probably like October timeframe of 2018, we had kind of a publicity event, right, where we had some PC pros come in from the PUBG side on the PC side. And it was really interesting to see their first reaction, because they came in like, oh, mobile's a joke, whatever, and put the phone in their hand. And like, the first impression was like, damn, that's actually pretty good. Why don't we have this on PC? You're seeing like all these kind of reactions, and it was like, all right, cool. So kind of vindicated on one hand, but then when they got into it, they're like, holy crap, like you guys are insane. Like the talent level of these guys on mobile going up against PC pros it's pretty cool. So it is like its own ecosystem, but I personally prefer using my fingers on the screen.
Yeah, I appreciate how games like this are sort of turning the tide on the conversation around the mobile in general. Obviously, there's so many mobile games out there that are designed for, sort of like casual. You don't really have to think about them too much. But yeah, you can get like legit hardcore with games like this, and
it's insane. I've sunk
it's kind of amazing.
many hours into PUBG and other titles across mobile, but PUBG Mobile specifically. And one thing that I really have to applaud PUBG Mobile and like the Tencent team for doing is really pushing the envelope on competition and esports on the mobile platform. You're starting to see like more and more like legitimate, like real events start to pop up with like good, respectable prize pools to the point where they're like competing with or even surpassing a lot of the stuff available.
Some of those have been really big on YouTube.
Yeah, it's been insane, and the viewership is massive. So I'm a huge proponent of mobile as a platform. I feel like, and I use my kids as a proxy here, right? Like I've got kids that are 10, 9, and 5, and they have, they're fortunate enough to have access to every freaking console platform that they want. And oftentimes I find them, with a phone or an iPad in their hands, and that's what they're going towards and gravitating towards. So I feel like eventually you're going to see more and more of that become kind of mainstream just by proxy of us getting old and, the kids coming up taking over.
I mean, we all play mobile games too, because we all live in the Bay Area and we have to commute. So, I mean, personally, I'm for
sure.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I play games on the bus like every day, or I did until I was trapped in my house, streaming with you guys from my child's bedroom for like months on end. But I'll get back to it.
Yeah.
Excited for the future though on mobile as a platform in general. Super excited for like PUBG Mobile to see where they kind of take things. One of the really cool things that I've seen over the past like year or so is similar to George R.R. Martin, who we referenced earlier, and watching like Game of Thrones, the TV show. It starts to deviate a little bit from the books, and you're starting to see that a little bit with mobile and PC. It's like I still believe they have to get a lot of the stuff approved, but you'll start seeing features and or little components of the game start to pop up that PC doesn't have, and that's kind of cool to see if that's going to continue to go that route. And development will kind of be its own thing, so it's not obvious what's coming, or if it's going to follow along. And either way, I think it's cool, but it definitely kind of leaves you guessing.
Yeah. Well,
I wanted to give you a quick.
Thank you for the update, man.
Of course.
And then,
I just wanted to say, if you have a mobile device at home, and for a phone, tablet, or something, and for some odd reason you don't have PUBG today, like specifically right now while you're watching the show, grab it and download it, because there's a storm brewing inside the Miramar map, and all of you are invited to join PUBG Mobile for a special 24-hour live stream event on May 11th. That is today, in case you don't know what day it is anymore, like most of us. And that's starting at 5 p.m. That's in like 15 minutes. Yeah, look for That's right. For a look at the fury and power of the coming storm, there may even be some special surprises during the stream. So tune in at youtube.com/PUBG Mobile. So grab your phone, go to the App Store, download PUBG Mobile, and go to youtube.com/PUBG Mobile right after this show ends, and kick it off and join the fun, join the party, because it's going to get crazy out there.
Yeah, I watched your video, that kill of the guy jumping out the window. That was with the Win 94. That was so.
Oh yeah.
Beautiful. Oh my God. That's like my dream kill, and I've never had that happen. So
I was looking up on that rooftop and thinking, man, it would be cool if somebody. Oh, hey, there is somebody up there, and for whatever reason, he decided I'm going to jump off the roof, and was able to tag him on the way down. I'm like, oh, he's got to die, and he did. That was cool. If any of y'all are downloading the game, though, I will be in it quite a bit. Come kill me. Screenshot it. Tag me. So talk some smack. I love it.
Speaking of death, Diablo is a celebration of it, because it's about hell. And Diablo 2 is apparently coming later this year, or at least a Diablo 2 remake, reboot, reimagining. We're still landing on what that actually means. Jeremy and I actually did a video a couple months ago trying to figure out the difference between all of those things.
It was really confusing.
Yes, it's very difficult.
It's probably less confusing if you're smart, but we struggled with a little bit.
That's right. So a report suggests that the long-rumored remaster of Diablo 2 may be coming this year. A French news outlet, Actu Gaming, is reporting that the game, which it believes to be called Diablo 2 Resurrected, will launch Q4 2020. The editor of Act 2 Gaming has previously correctly predicted announcements for Overwatch 2, Diablo 4, and WoW Shadowlands, and the article cites sources close to the studio and suggests that Vicarious Visions is supporting Blizzard on the project. Vicarious Visions has been operating for decades now, but the studio most recently worked on the Crash Bandicoot revival, developing the Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy and Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled. So hard pivot from that Bandicoot with jeans on to... like, you know, this
to hell.
This to hell, right?
He's from hell also, I think.
Yeah. Crash Bandicoot, absolutely. Yeah. He's died and reborn. Yeah, so this is kind of awesome news. You know, Bethesda got in sort of some hot water last year or the year before. It's been a long century so far of you know, talking about Diablo Mobile, which is, I think, like going to be an awesome game at the end of the day, but it wasn't at the time exactly what the hardcore fans were looking for.
I've always said that thought it was going to be Diablo 4.
Yeah, and the trick with that is
but you know,
yeah, you gotta announce stuff like that concurrently with the other thing that people want to make everybody happy, you know. And so this would be really cool to see this game. Most recently, they ported Diablo to Switch, and it's like one of the best-selling third-party games on Switch. It's
so good.
Also, like, people are excited about Diablo 2 because it hasn't really been available anywhere for a long time. Do you remember this? Like, they kind of took it offline,
right?
And it's also, you know, tonally much kind of it's darker to me, at least, than the third game was, which felt a little bit campier. Like Diablo 2 is just like really dark, really metal, like really cool. It's a title that was like a must-have for anybody playing on PC. This isn't going to be like a Final Fantasy VII remake style thing. This is going to be like a remaster, I'm pretty sure. Kind of maybe like what we saw with Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, but those were great. Those are really great remasters. I really liked those.
Yeah, so, I don't think this game really needs like a Final Fantasy VII style sort of top to bottom overhaul. Like this is a classic, awesome game, beloved. It works perfectly. I don't think it's like aged terribly or anything like that. So, yeah, this would be great. I'm kind of surprised that Vicarious Visions is behind it, but I think they're going to do awesome stuff.
They did Ultimate Alliance 1 and 2, didn't they?
Yeah, I believe you're right.
Those were great.
Destiny 2.
Yeah.
Did they work on that? Yeah. And so the Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy and Crash Team Racing are like both stunning games. And I remember doing some interviews around those, and like a really interesting thing that they did for those things were like, and this is obviously not directly applicable to Diablo because it's about hell and not about cartoon animals racing each other, but they added a lot of sort of like flora and fauna and bizarre little details in the background of the levels in that racing game. So imagine like you're playing Mario Kart from the N64 and you play a modernized version of it, and they go, over here we're in this bat cave, we're going to have like 60 different things going on in the background that weren't there in the original, that don't impact the gameplay at all, but it's sort of just window dressing that, you know, creates a better vibe for the whole thing. And I think there's so much opportunity to do that kind of stuff with Diablo.
I'm just glad that they're farming it out instead of doing it in-house, because a lot of the people in the comments, like this guy Craven Hunter, are saying after Warcraft 3 Reforged, no thank you.
Oh yeah. Forgot all about that one.
Yeah, that was like
I totally forgot Warcraft 3 came back.
Last year.
I'm the exact same. I forgot.
That was one of the games that hooked me on computer games when I was a kid, was Warcraft 3, man. That was such a classic, and I remember, you know, building cities and raiding, and that was in the days of taking my PC over to my buddy's house and, you know, the big CRT monitors, getting those bad boys plugged in, having old school LAN parties. So to see that come back and flop was a little bit sad.
Yeah.
Was there another developer that was working on that with them? Like I think maybe like Lemon Sky. Is that right? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
People are asking in the chat. I just don't remember. I don't remember there being like a third-party studio necessarily like super involved in that one. I think that was like their own mess that they made. But I'm looking forward to them fixing that and like turning things around with Diablo 2. Like I don't like to see anybody fail, you know, especially not at a time like this. Like I want to be happy, and I want people to keep their jobs, and I want Diablo 2 to be bitchin' and metal and dark and crazy and like really bloody and gross and rad. So
yeah,
I don't know. I'm optimistic.
we got a note in early April from Sarah Lynn Smith, the executive producer of BlizzCon, saying, obviously the show's not happening this year. And so maybe they will pivot into sort of a digital way to get that news out, like so many other companies have. This would be nice. This would be a nice thing to hear this year. Like we need good video game news, and like we said earlier, hopefully it sort of retains like the weird, gross darkness of the original, because that's important. Speaking of darkness, the upcoming movie The Batman, which is currently in not development hell, but it's kind of on hold because of everything happening, has been they started it, right? Yeah. Has been said by Andy Serkis, who I believe plays Alfred Pennyworth in the movie, which is really interesting casting, that this will be darker than the previous films. A lot to unpack with that quote specifically.
Has he seen the previous films?
Yeah, right? Like, I mean, things got pretty bleak, like especially The Dark Knight, which is the quintessential Batman movie. There's a lot of death and despair and destruction in that film. Like
3 hours of pure nihilism.
Yeah, like Two-Face waking up in the hospital and rolling over is one of the most like horrific reveals. Like Joker blows up a hospital. Like there's a lot happening there. So I don't know. Do we want a darker, broodier Batman?
Sure, why
not? I want a
not?
stupid Adam West Batman, but I think I'm the only one.
Oh my gosh.
Bang! I don't know.
Zowie. Yeah. Don't spit out your drink over there. No, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get around the Batman. Putting the before Batman, I am having a hard time like mentally juggling just that 3-letter word.
Yep. It's like what they did with the Predator franchise, where there was like Predator, Predator 2, Predators, and The Predator.
Right.
And you're like, you guys know there was like other words. Right?
The next movie will be A Predator.
A Batman.
A Batman. Fast and the Furious.
Definitely. I don't know. I think I could be down for a darker Batman. I don't know. Again, in the spirit of innovation, you feel like it's all kind of been done at this point with Batman, dating back to the 50s. I wouldn't mind seeing some little new take on it. But again, how far do you veer away from what's tried and true and the spirit of the comic,
Yeah, I'm totally with you. I think it's like the thing is like the running sort of sentiment and joke around this thing is that how many times have we seen Batman's parents die, and how do you kill them in a way that's impactful and darker and more gruesome than ever before? And maybe you don't. Like maybe that's something that's already happened and you don't address it. Somebody actually put together a supercut on YouTube of every time Batman's parents have been killed in pop culture, and it's insane. Like between comics, movies, TV shows, and video games, it is like a 2 or 3 times a year where they just murder the parents in the slow-mo shot of the Martha Wayne's pearls hitting the street. It even happened in Joker. And so I'm like this is a sentence I never expected I'd be saying in my adulthood, but I'm a huge Robert Pattinson fan. I never saw any of the Twilight movies. I don't care. I missed all of that. I didn't have sisters growing up, so I have no idea what's going on.
Maybe now that you're such a big fan, you can go back and catch them.
That's and I'm like, hey, wait a minute, this is not what I'm looking for. But like I've seen, like stuff like Good Time and The Lighthouse are incredibly dark, gritty movies without sort of like overtly just being about death. Although there's obviously those themes. And so I'm hoping that the reason he signed on to this movie to begin with is because it feels a little bit more street level. It feels a little grittier. It's a little bit more about the detective stuff. And
he's comparing it to like Chinatown and stuff.
Yeah, which is crazy. And like we're going to this movie. Alcoholic
in this one, or what?
God, I hope so. I mean, I hope they get into the sort of like the rogues gallery of villains they have here is super interesting, and I think there's a lot to work with. You have the Penguin. You have, I believe, Catwoman's in this movie. I believe, who else? Do you guys know? Was Poison Ivy rumored at some point? Like, I remember it hit a tipping point. Oh, and the Riddler's in this movie as well. And so, yeah, there's going to be a lot to work with. I mean, the Penguin specifically, I think that like the opening scene of Batman Returns, which is one of my favorite Batman movies, where the Penguin's born and his parents basically just nope out and throw him in a sewer. That is like one of the. I remember being a kid and being in theater and being like, "Holy crap, you can do that!" Not like you can throw a kid away, but like you can do that in a movie for kids. So yeah, I'm excited for that. I think that after Joker, they were less inclined to want to sell toys and more, inclined to just want to make a cool standalone movie.
You don't need to sell toys when you made $1 billion at the box office, but I'm not so sure that's going to happen again anytime soon.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Well, this one's, this has been now moved to an October 2021 release date. So that's, a year and a half away. Hopefully that's more than enough time for the world to settle.
That's crazy that's coming out after Venom 2, because like Andy Serkis directed that one, which is wild.
Yeah, I did not know that until I just saw it here. And now I'm even more excited. Because in spite of the fact that Venom was not a good movie, man, did I have fun. Because I took my son and his best friend, and they were so stoked the whole time. And plus, the theater was filled with Venom fans. That's all I have to say.
Imagine Andy Serkis, of all people, Gollum,
right?
Like directing the actors to be all freaky deaky as Carnage and like symbiotes and stuff. Like
it's gonna be great.
A+.
Yes.
I hope for Venom 2 that everyone this time around knows what movie they're in. Because the first one, Tom Hardy was like, "This is a dark slapstick comedy, and I'm gonna get in the fish tank in the restaurant, and I'm gonna eat a raw lobster." And everyone else in the movie was like, "This is a serious film."
That scene made me laugh more than any comedy this whole last couple of years.
Oh God, yeah. I love that we're talking about Venom too. So they were actually shooting that movie recently in San Francisco. Woody Harrelson is playing Cletus Cassidy. They updated the wig that he had at the post stinger from the first movie, which I believe they got either from Ruby's or from like a Halloween store 5 days after Halloween.
That old Circuit City.
Yeah, I was literally laughing, like as far as like the comedy and like the knowing what movie you're in. It's literally a perfect segue. But Deadpool, like I love that vibe in a hero movie. That was probably one of my favorite movies of the last several years. That whole franchise, just the way they approached a superhero movie, like with just straight up talk to deadpan. It was great.
Fourth wall breaking. Deadpool 1 and 2 are like some of my favorite comic book movies ever made. Some of my favorite comedies ever made. Deadpool 2 had the unmitigated gall to kill, like, didn't they kill Brad Pitt in like half a second?
Yeah, that's right.
They had a cameo where they open the door and it's the entire like OG X-Men in costume, and they just close the door on Deadpool, but you're like, you're not part of this team. But unfortunately, we got some kind of bummer news about the Deadpool franchise this week. In this episode is all about holding your breath or not holding your breath for things that are either close or very far away. Do not hold your breath for Deadpool 3, says creator Rob Liefeld, famous artist, inventor of characters covered in more patches and pouches than you could possibly imagine, and also distinct inability to draw feet. That's his own quote. That's not me. So Rob Liefeld is a creator of Deadpool. And as you all know, Deadpool was owned by Fox, which then got purchased by Disney. And so many of us started wondering, what are those franchises, X-Men, Deadpool, Fantastic Four, where does that fall underneath the sort of MCU Marvel umbrella thing? Not to be confused with the aforementioned Sony Deadpool side saga of characters they're allowed to play with. Yeah, whatever that is, the kids' table. And so in the aftermath of the Disney-Fox merger, it was unclear what was happening to that story. And Rob Liefeld said in an interview with Inverse that he fears the Deadpool movies have set sail, and because of Marvel Studios' jam-packed slate of superhero movies over the next few years, Liefeld suggests there's no room for Deadpool 3 and claims that Kevin Feige has had zero plans for the sequel.
Right. Like, let me just point something out here. What the hell does Rob Liefeld know? Like, is he talking to Kevin Feige? Is he making the movie, or is he just like getting a check in the mail? What the hell? Why are we basing this on what he has to say? He's probably just salty.
The creator of Wildcats. Hello.
I love Wildcats.
I did too.
Yeah, I love this dude. I love his work, but like, I don't know what he's talking about, man. I feel like this merger just happened like in the pantheon of how things work in Hollywood. Like this is in its infancy. Of course, they don't have a plan for what they're going to do with the X-Men yet. They've got a whole Phase 4 thing they got to work out with the other movies. I'm sure we'll get little Easter eggs and little cameos and stuff at best. But
I think
calm
you're right.
down. Like I think we'll get it. I just think it's going to take a minute. I'm pretty sure Ryan Reynolds
with corporate like mergers and acquisitions and all that. That stuff's confusing, like you gotta, like on the inside of that stuff, you gotta figure out what's what, put things in place, figure out like internal processes before you start thinking about like creative outward facing projects. And, this type of movie, like just look at the reception and more important than that, the box office numbers of the last two. I mean, you can't tell me that a movie that comes out and crushes it, like, oh, it's revered, loved by everybody, like, no plans.
Yeah, I think the fear was, it's obviously going to be R-rated, and how does Disney play with that kind of stuff? And I think the solution there is like you just give it a different label, maybe hide the Mickey Mouse ears until the very, very end. But also, like, there's pictures of Ryan Reynolds in front of the Marvel Studios logo, visiting them like in their corporate headquarters. So they're talking. They've had conversations. I don't like Jeremy said. I don't know if Rob Liefeld is in those same meetings. Maybe they should call him. I feel like he's not going to be after this interview. Right?
Some great PR. It's not going to happen.
Yeah. I don't know. We're gigantic Deadpool fans here at IGN, and Powerbang, you are too. So I really hope this. There we go. I really hope this comes together. I would love. Like I'm way more excited for something like this than I am for, Doctor Strange 2, or even though Sam Raimi's involved with that now, the Eternals. I want Deadpool. Like the last movie was not even. It's like it happened in the same year as Avengers Endgame, which was this like thing about saving the universe. And Deadpool 2 was about like killing a schoolmaster because he was a pervert. Like,
right. I feel like in that particular movie in general, I feel like Ryan Reynolds can really carry a heavy load on the acting front. I feel like it's so corely based around him and his performance. But the plot, I mean, they can be a little weak on the storyline, and I still think it could be an incredible movie. Like, hopefully they don't cut corners, and hopefully they develop a wonderful storyline. But at the same time, I still feel like it would be very difficult for a third one to fall on its face.
Yep, totally agree. Jeremy, you want to take us home?
Yeah, I mean, I wish we had more time to talk about more stories and hang out with Powerbang more, but we got to wrap it up. I want to thank Powerbang for joining us on the show today. It was great to have you.
Thank you for having me. It was an honor being here, man. This is really, really cool.
Thank you. Powerbang Gaming is an awesome channel on YouTube. You should go check it out. You should subscribe. Love the channel. Great dude. And also thank you to PUBG Mobile for sponsoring this episode. And don't forget that they have an event happening on their channel right now, this minute, that you can go see at youtube.com/PUBG Mobile. It's really easy to download the game, really easy to go check out that channel. Thanks again to everybody, to PUBG Mobile, to Powerbang. And thanks to you, the viewers, for joining us today and talking about some news, games, and more with us, your friends here at IGN. I'm your pal Jeremy. And you guys are Brian, Seth,
Powerbang. Yeah. It's me. Hi. No. Thanks so much, guys, for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. We got to get you back soon, man. This was a blast.
Yeah, absolutely.
For sure. Anytime.
Bye, guys. Happy longest Monday, Tuesday, whatever day it is, the year of the month.
We'll see you
Happy
back
2020.
Here
it's been real so far. Later, y'all.
Happy whatever day, week, month, year it is. I don't know.